The wrench felt familiar in Marcus Rivera's calloused hands as he worked beneath the hood of an old pickup truck. Oil stained his blue coveralls, and sweat beaded on his forehead despite the cool autumn air flowing through the open bay doors of Rivera's auto repair. He moved with quiet precision, each motion deliberate and practiced, though his eyes held a depth that seemed to see beyond the simple engine before him. The bell above the shop door chimed softly as 80-year-old Emma bounced in, her backpack sliding off one shoulder and her dark curls catching the afternoon light. She had her father's thoughtful eyes but carried herself with the boundless energy that only children possess. "Dad, Mrs. Peterson says I'm the best at math problems in the whole 3rd grade, she announced, dropping her backpack near his toolbox with a satisfied thump. Marcus straightened, wiping his hands on a rag, and smiled at his daughter. "That's because you think like an engineer, little one. You see the patterns others miss. Where in the world are you watching from, and what time is it where you are right now?" he thought to himself, remembering how his wife used to wonder about people in distant places living their own stories at this very moment. Emma climbed onto the old wooden stool beside his workbench, swinging her legs as she watched him organize his tools with methodical care. Each wrench had its place, each socket arranged by size, a habit that spoke of deeper training than most small-town mechanics possessed. "Can you teach me about engines, Dad?" she asked, her eyes bright with curiosity. Marcus paused, remembering when he used to explain turbine designs and fuel injection systems to graduate students. Now he pointed to the truck's engine block. "See how all these parts work together, Emma. Every piece has a purpose, even the smallest bolt. When one part fails, the whole system suffers." Outside, the rumble of an expensive engine grew louder, then sputtered and died with a concerning grinding sound. Through the bay window, Marcus glimpsed a sleek silver sedan rolling to a stop in front of his shop, steam rising from under its hood. A woman emerged from the driver's seat, her tailored suit and confident posture marking her as someone accustomed to command. She moved with the quick, impatient stride of a person whose time was measured in millions, her dark hair pulled back in a severe bun and her expression already showing frustration at this unexpected delay. "This should be interesting," Marcus murmured to himself, watching as she approached the shop entrance with the determined march of someone who wasn't used to mechanical failures disrupting her carefully planned schedule. The woman strode through the shop entrance with the authority of someone who owned boardrooms, her heels clicking sharply against the concrete floor. She surveyed the modest repair shop with barely concealed disdain, taking in the oil-stained floor, the hand-lettered price signs, and the collection of aging tools that had seen decades of honest work. "Excuse me," she said, her voice crisp and businesslike. "My car has broken down and I need it fixed immediately. I have a board meeting in 2 hours that cannot be postponed." Marcus wiped his hands clean and approached her calmly. "I'm Marcus Rivera. What seems to be the problem with your vehicle, ma'am?" Sarah Chen gestured impatiently toward her sedan. "It's a hybrid prototype with a custom engine management system. The diagnostic computer shows multiple error codes, and frankly, I doubt a shop like this has the equipment to handle such sophisticated technology." Emma watched from her perch on the stool, sensing the tension in the woman's voice. Her father's expression remained neutral, but she noticed the slight tightening around his eyes that appeared whenever someone questioned his abilities. Marcus nodded thoughtfully. "Well, let's take a look and see what we're dealing with. Sometimes the most complex problems have surprisingly simple solutions." The condescension in Sarah's laugh was unmistakable. "I seriously doubt that, but I suppose I have no other choice at the moment." Marcus walked outside to examine the sedan, his practiced eye immediately noting details that others might miss. The car's sleek design spoke of cutting-edge engineering, but the irregular steam pattern and the subtle vibration in the idle suggested specific system failures that required more than basic mechanical knowledge. He popped the hood and studied the engine bay with the same methodical attention he once gave to jet turbine assemblies. The hybrid system was indeed sophisticated, with integrated electric motors, advanced battery management, and a computer-controlled fuel injection system that most mechanics would find intimidating. Sarah stood beside him, arms crossed, watching his examination with skeptical impatience. "As I suspected, she said curtly. "This is far beyond what a small-town shop can handle. I'll call for a tow truck to take it to the dealership." Marcus continued his inspection, running his fingers along sensor cables and checking connection points with the gentle touch of someone who understood delicate systems. After several minutes of silent assessment, he straightened and looked at her directly. "Ma'am, I believe I can fix this. The problem appears to be a cascade failure in your thermal management system, probably triggered by a faulty sensor that's causing your engine control unit to receive incorrect temperature readings." Sarah's eyebrows rose slightly. "That's impossible. Even our own engineers struggle with this prototype's diagnostics." Enhanced_main_script.py. Marcus disappeared into the shop and returned with a diagnostic scanner that looked far more advanced than anything Sarah expected to find in such a humble establishment. As he connected the device to her car's computer system, his movements carried the fluid efficiency of someone who had worked with far more complex machinery than automobile engines. Emma approached cautiously, sensing the importance of the moment. "My dad can fix anything," she whispered to Sarah with the absolute faith that only a child could possess. "He used to work with flying machines before I was born." Sarah glanced down at the girl, then back at Marcus, who was now studying readouts on the scanner's display with the focused intensity of a surgeon reviewing critical patient data. The way he interpreted the diagnostic code suggested a depth of understanding that went far beyond basic automotive repair. "Interesting," Marcus murmured, more to himself than to his audience. "The primary thermal sensor is functioning correctly, but there's a secondary feedback loop creating phantom readings. The engine control unit is compensating for a problem that doesn't actually exist." He reached into the engine bay with steady hands, his fingers navigating the complex array of wires and components with surprising familiarity. Sarah found herself leaning closer, watching him work with growing fascination as he bypassed certain circuits and recalibrated others using techniques she'd never seen before. The precision of his work was almost surgical, each adjustment calculated and purposeful. Sarah's phone buzzed insistently in her pocket, but for the first time in years, she ignored it completely. She was transfixed by the methodical way Marcus worked, his hands moving through the engine bay as if he possessed an intimate understanding of every component's purpose and relationship to the whole system. "He's not just fixing it," she realized with growing amazement. "He's optimizing it." Marcus made subtle adjustments to the fuel mixture algorithms, fine-tuned the electric motor integration protocols, and recalibrated the battery management system with the expertise of someone who had designed similar systems rather than simply repaired them. Each modification was precise, purposeful, and executed with a confidence that spoke of deep theoretical knowledge. Emma watched her father work with quiet pride, remembering the nights when he would help her with homework using the same patient, thorough approach. She didn't understand the technical details, but she recognized the look of concentration on his face, the same expression he wore when solving her most challenging math problems. 23 minutes had passed when Marcus finally stepped back from the engine. He wiped his hands clean and looked at Sarah with the same calm expression he'd worn since she first challenged him. "Try starting it now," he said simply. Sarah hesitated, almost afraid to hope after so many disappointing attempts at other shops. She slid behind the wheel and turned the key. The engine came to life with a smooth, powerful purr that was noticeably quieter and more refined than before her breakdown. Sarah stared at the dashboard in disbelief. Not only were all the error codes gone, but the efficiency readings showed improvements she hadn't thought possible. The engine was running smoother than it had even when brand new, with fuel consumption numbers that defied the original engineering specifications. She stepped out of the car slowly, her business-focused mind struggling to process what had just occurred. "This is impossible," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Our top engineers spent months on this prototype's calibration. How did you accomplish in 20 minutes what they couldn't do in months of testing?" Marcus closed the hood with gentle finality, his expression unchanged. "Sometimes an outside perspective helps. When you're too close to a problem, you might miss simple solutions that are right in front of you." But Sarah wasn't satisfied with modest explanations. She pulled out her phone and showed him the technical specifications. Do you realize what you just did? You've improved the thermal efficiency by 12% and reduced emissions below our most optimistic projections. These modifications require understanding of advanced thermodynamics and computer systems integration. Emma tugged on her father's sleeve. Dad, the lady seems really surprised. Is that good? Marcus smiled down at his daughter, then looked back at Sarah with eyes that held secrets of a different life. Ma'am, I believe you mentioned something about marriage if I fixed your engine. I hope you're a woman of your word. Sarah's confident composure cracked for the first time, a nervous laugh escaping as she processed Marcus's earnest response to her sarcastic challenge. Wait, you can't be serious about the marriage comment. That was obviously a joke. Nobody actually fixes engines that have stumped our entire engineering department. But Marcus's steady gaze suggested he was entirely serious about both the technical achievement and her offhand proposal. I don't make promises lightly, ma'am, and I don't expect others to either. You offered marriage in exchange for fixing your engine. I've completed my part of the agreement. Emma giggled softly, finding something delightfully amusing about the whole exchange, though she didn't fully understand the implications. The innocence of her laughter seemed to highlight the absurdity of the situation for Sarah, who was accustomed to wielding words as precise instruments of corporate negotiation. Sarah studied Marcus more carefully now, noticing details she'd previously overlooked. His hands, though stained with honest work, moved with the precision of someone accustomed to delicate operations. His vocabulary, when discussing technical matters, carried the fluency of advanced education. Even his posture suggested a background far different from what his current circumstances implied. Who are you really? She asked, her voice dropping to a more personal register. Because no ordinary mechanic possesses the knowledge you just demonstrated. Those modifications require years of specialized training and experience with cutting-edge automotive technology. Marcus was quiet for a long moment, his gaze drifting to Emma, who was now sketching engine diagrams in her notebook with the same careful attention to detail that he brought to his work. The weight of his past seemed to settle on his shoulders as he considered how much to reveal to this demanding stranger. I used to design propulsion systems for aerospace applications, he said finally, his voice carrying the measured tone of someone sharing a carefully guarded truth. Jet engines, rocket propulsion, advanced fuel management systems. The principles aren't so different from what's under your hood, just scaled differently. Sarah's eyes widened as the pieces began falling into place. You're talking about military or space program work. That level of clearance, that kind of expertise, doesn't just disappear into small-town auto repair without a compelling reason. Emma looked up from her drawing, pride shining in her young face. My dad is the smartest person in the whole world. He left his important job to take care of me when Mommy went to heaven. Now he fixes cars so he can pick me up from school every day. The simple honesty of the child's explanation hit Sarah like a physical blow. Here was a man who had voluntarily walked away from what must have been a prestigious, high-paying career to prioritize his daughter's needs. The sacrifice implicit in that choice was staggering, and it reframed everything she thought she understood about ambition and success. Sarah stood in stunned silence, her entire worldview shifting as she processed the magnitude of what she just witnessed. This wasn't simply mechanical repair, it was engineering genius applied with the kind of intuitive understanding that took decades to develop. Marcus had solved in minutes what her team of PhD engineers couldn't crack in months of dedicated effort. The irony wasn't lost on her. She'd spent years building Chen Automotive Technologies into a leader in hybrid innovation, constantly searching for talent capable of pushing the boundaries of what was possible. And here, in a modest repair shop she'd initially dismissed with contempt, stood someone whose expertise exceeded that of her entire research department. Marcus, she said, her voice carrying a new note of respect, I owe you an apology. I judged your capabilities based on your surroundings, and that was both foolish and unfair. What you've accomplished here demonstrates mastery that our industry desperately needs. Emma beamed with pride, bouncing slightly on her toes. I told you my dad was amazing, she said to Sarah with the satisfaction of someone whose faith had been vindicated. Marcus wiped his hands one final time, his expression thoughtful. The engine modifications I made will give you about 20% better performance than your original specifications. The marriage offer was generous, but I suspect you were speaking hypothetically. Sarah felt heat rise in her cheeks as she realized how seriously he'd taken her flippant comment. Sarah reached into her purse and pulled out a business card, her hands trembling slightly as she extended it toward Marcus. I'm Sarah Chen, CEO of Chen Automotive Technologies. What I'm about to offer you is completely serious. I want you to head our Advanced Propulsion Research Division. The salary would be 10 times what you could possibly make here, with full benefits and flexible hours that would still allow you to be there for Emma.